This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system.
That was a teaser for the return of the Eric McRae Show, coming back very, very shortly thanks to the Underground Media Network. Now, today I thought just have a little bit of fun, because there is nothing better to do than to listen to Shane Jones talk. Let's be real here. Matua Shane Jones is someone that no matter what he's talking about, you will always be entertained. So, Matua Shane Jones is talking about how we cannot afford to have this ethnic warping of our democracy.
Honourable Shane Jones.
Mr. Speaker, it's more in sadness than anything else I take this call, because Māoridom has such high expectations. When the younger generation come to Parliament, they'll not only bring the passion of the electorate they represent, but they'll bring enough humility to respect the House, which reflects the inordinately strong traditions of our democracy, one of the longest unbroken chains of democracy in the civilised world. There are three legs to this offensive stool. Number one, the committee must determine whether or not the words uttered were misleading. Number two, members of the committee must determine whether or not the misleading statement was known at that time to be actually inaccurate. And number three, it must have been the intention to mislead the House. Those three legs are laid out in our parliamentary encyclopedia. This young, inexperienced, largely unknown member has come to this House, levelled serious attacks against other members, which caused our party, through our whip, to make a formal complaint. These decisions are not taken lightly, but sadly the complaint cannot deal with the deeper virus. And the virus is that member, day after day, swaggers and shows an utter contempt for the obligations and duties that fall upon us as taxpayer representatives of the public. Look no further than the surreptitious manner of the politician, of that politician's apology. An attempt not to offer the apology in both languages. And I'm saddened by that, Mr. Speaker. I know that Te Reo Māori is one of our official languages. I know the member is allowed to use Te Reo. The people, however, who deserve the apology on the basis of a finding of contempt, they ought to have heard that apology in both languages of the treaty. An unwillingness to offer an apology in English shows contempt for the vast majority of the New Zealand members of the public who pay his salary. Of course, this is a small element of seeking to deploy and weaponise tikanga and Māori culture to pretend if you have Māori blood and you're in this parliament, you don't answer to the same rules and regulations. I pray and hope that the New Zealand public at the next electoral experience deliver an appropriate response to that level of superciliousness. We cannot afford to have this ethnic warping of our democracy. If you come to Parliament, you accept, along with your fellow New Zealanders, an obligation to uphold the duties of being a parliamentarian. If you do not want to uphold those obligations, get another job. Don't come and deprecate, don't come and take for granted, and do not trivialise the inordinate privilege that many other Maori members of the iwi community, of the Taitonga community, have sought to achieve the status of being here to replace such people as Eruera Tirikatene, such people as Patterson from Ngaitahu in the 1800s, such people as the All Black Tutakawa Wiley. Do you really think that they would have thought there was any honour in giggling, trivialising, demonising this Parliament through that display of not only committing an act of contempt, but accusing my leader, Winston Peters, and others of being liars? Now, there may be elements in our iwi community who think this is a gross overreaction. This is not an overreaction. This is a level of the obligation that sits upon everyone. Because when we are here as parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker, we have an indivisible duty. And it's about time, and this report actually affirms the importance of not splitting rules to suit people who enjoy a different ethnicity. Yes, he did make an apology in Te Reo. I've been speaking Te Reo since that guy was born. And I would have had no hesitation in offering an apology with humility to every single New Zealander who I have treated with contempt, and I take for granted the money they pay every day for the handsome salary we enjoy as public servants. No, this member beats to a drum where he believes he's impervious. He's beyond any of this criticism because he's blessed with some pure non-Muggles Maori blood. Shame on you for bringing your own people into disrepute. Shame on your leaders for not insisting you show whakaiti, you show humility. And shame on you for misrepresenting and bringing whakamā to the long list of leaders who have held the positions of the Maori seat. There is no honour in this arrogant, no honour in this childish, no honour in this contemptuous display of disregard for what it means to be a parliamentarian. And I'm very proud to stand and give this speech and to stand with the architects of this report. Too afraid to turn up in the courtyard of Parliament's highest committee. No, it's in here. I can quote, the invitation was given. The invitation was not taken up. From the very member who says that a number of us are too afraid in our political life to stand up and be counted. So to the committee who have come up with this report, sadly, there are likely to be other instances. Let it be a lesson for those of us who treat with absolute privilege that we are here, that this report is an indictment. This report is a very sad day. And hopefully, sir, there is the opportunity for the person in the wrong to learn a lesson. That without whakaiti, there is no rangatiratanga. The rangatira who does not understand duties and obligations is whakahihi, whakamanamana. These are Maori words that we know very deeply, and they call for a level of modesty, humility, and the tohu of a rangatira. Thank you very much.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the next leader of the New Zealand First Party, whenever that day comes. It's not clear when that day's going to come, but Winston Peters is going to eventually step aside. And I think what Shane Jones has been doing this term in particular is highlighting that he is very much able to go into that role. And I think that speech there is case in point. The ability for him to do that, be serious, but also articulate himself in a way that is required to really get the point across. Now, he makes a great deal many good points there. Yeah, he's going on about how Te Pāti Māori, just generally speaking, have absolutely no regard for our parliament, no regard for how the system works, and will actively disrespect it every opportunity they get. That's why he emphasised that not even Takuta Ferris, who was the MP in question here, who has been found to be in contempt, not even his leaders have any interest in holding Takuta Ferris accountable. They're just like, well, whatever the parliament's going to force them to do, they'll do it, but we're not going to encourage him to, do so with humility, to do so in a way that respects the office that he holds. The reality is Te Pāti Māori do not have any respect for the office they hold. They have utter contempt for it. So isn't that just poetry? That the party that has contempt for the very parliament that they are members of would be found in contempt. If you're a Maori and you are looking for a Maori party, New Zealand First is the party for you. Why? Because not only will they put your interests first, they will do so in a way that puts New Zealand's interests first. Now, they're a political party, right? They're inherently flawed because of that very fact. No political party, be that here in New Zealand or elsewhere, is perfect, and fundamentally they will let you down time and time again. That's just going to happen with politics, with political parties. However, as we all know, we only have so many options, and we need to elect someone. So if you're a Māori individual and you value a strong Māori voice, I would recommend giving Winston Peters, Shane Jones, and the rest of their gang a go. Because you're not going to get the level of understanding of tikanga of the reo in any of the other parties than you will in New Zealand First. Sure, maybe Te Pāti Māori, but do you really want to align yourself with racial separatists who have utter contempt for the office that you'd be electing them to? Perhaps you yourself have contempt for Parliament and our colonial system. Well, I would encourage you not to. Because through that colonial system, you're able to enact really great changes. You just have to vote the right way and quite frankly, engage in the political process. We will never ever get everything that we want, but only through actively engaging in that process will you actually go on the right path, get on the right track. It'll be a great day for New Zealand when we get rid of the Maori electorate seats, because clearly 6 of the 7 in them right now have contempt for them. They have contempt for the entire system they're part of. They have no respect for the parliamentary process. They have no respect for the standing orders. They pick and choose when they show up. They pick and choose when they behave themselves. They don't care, so why should you? And that's not even really the point. I don't care who's in those seats, they shouldn't exist anyway. One could argue that when they were first devised, there was a valid argument for them. But I think we're long overdue in that respect. In fact, going back as far as the introduction of MMP, it was suggested or recommended that they've probably run their course. Yet we've held on to them for 3 decades. So should we get rid of them? Absolutely. And should we get rid of them soon? Absolutely. In fact, if I had it my way, would be rid of them as soon as 2029. I feel like that's a realistic time frame. If I'm New Zealand First, I'm proposing we get rid of them. And I'm going into the 2026 election saying that, hey, look, in our coalition negotiations, because ultimately they're going to need to do so, we're going to attempt to get rid of the Māori electorate seats. And what better than a dwindling National Party and a surging ACT Party to do that? If you're suddenly in a situation where National's down at 28-29%, ACT is in the teens, and New Zealand First is getting closer and closer to the 10% mark, well, I can tell you right now, ACT is a party that may just get on board with the idea of eliminating the Māori electorate seats. I mean, after all, they are the ones that are behind the Treaty Principles Bill. So, come election 2026, and we have coalition negotiations, wouldn't it be great to see New Zealand First and ACT team up with a combined, let's say, 20% of the vote versus 28, 29, maybe 30? Gang up on National and say, hey, look, you want our support, we're going to, at the very least, put this up for referendum. But you know what would be a better idea? Because you simply should not have a referendum on something that is so blatantly discriminatory. If we just said, hey, look, in 2029 we're going to get rid of them. But I appreciate that may not necessarily happen. So, worst comes to worst, let's say we have a referendum in 2029 getting rid of the Maori electorate seats, and if it's agreed that the public want to get rid of them, then by 2032, they're gone. It's done. I think that is a more than reasonable step forward and a necessary step forward for this country. And before people say, oh, you can't just get rid of electorate seats like that, especially when it's discriminatory or it disproportionately impacts Maori, we change around electorates all the time, particularly with regards to the census. For example, my current electorate didn't exist 6 years ago. It is a recent invention because population demographics change in different regions, and so they have to adjust the boundaries, sometimes even change the name of electorates. This means that someone who is the electorate MP of, let's say, Hunua, suddenly needs to stand in Takanini. It's a matter of these adjustments, and every single time we have an election, no one has a seat. Suddenly all the seats are empty, and we appoint who we want there. So it's not disproportionately impacting anyone. Now, you can pretend that getting rid of a race-based provision in our electoral system is disproportionately affecting Maori if you like, but that's only because you would be removing an inherent privilege that they have and making it equal again. You see, no ethnicity should be entitled to representation of their choosing.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system.